Certain events throughout history are so mysterious that just the mere mention of their name can send a chill down one's spine. Some have searched for answers to what happened during that cold winter so many years ago. Perhaps some have even died trying. As for us, let us begin our journey into the dark. On January 23, 1959, a group of students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute headed out on a skiing expedition to the northern Ural Mountains in Russia. Several days later, 21-year-old Yuri Yudin became ill, and on January 28th, Yuri decided to turn back. He was the only survivor. In January, this group of 10 students, 8 men and 2 women, planned their route, which would take them to the upper streams of the Lazva River in the Ural Mountains. They were granted approval from the City Route Commission of the Committee of Physical Culture and Sport. Excited and ready, they set out that very day. Igor Dyatlov was the expedition leader. All were experienced skiers. They planned to trek over 200 miles along a difficult ski route to Mount Otorten, a name which is said to mean, "Don't go there." The group was to return by February 12th, but they warned family and friends that the expedition could go longer than planned. February 12th came and went. After a week with no word, a volunteer search party was organized and later joined by the police and military. On February 26th, rescuers found an abandoned tent pitched on the highest slopes of Kholat-Syakhl, also known as the Mountain of the Dead. The front of the tent was fastened closed, but there were large slashes down the tent sides. Boots, blankets, cameras, and notebooks were abandoned inside. 9 sets of footprints led out towards the edge of the nearby woods. At the forest edge, under a large Siberian pine, they found 2 bodies, Krivonishenko and Doroshenko. The branches of the pine had been broken 16 feet high. Between the pine and the tent, searchers found 3 more bodies, Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin. The 3 were found separated, 500 feet apart from each other. An inquest was started immediately after the first 5 bodies were found, and the initial conclusion was that they had all died of hypothermia. Slobodin had a small crack in his skull, but it was ruled out as a cause of death. Finding the other 4 bodies took more than 2 months. They were discovered at the bottom of a ravine in a running stream of water, 246 feet farther into the woods. They were buried under 13 feet of snow. Although the temperature was over 20 degrees below zero, the dead were only partially dressed. Some were missing shoes, others had only socks on their feet. Some were found wrapped in pieces of clothing that had been cut from those that were already dead. An examination of these 4 bodies changed the narrative of the investigation. 3 of the hikers had fatal injuries. Nikolai Brignuls had major skull damage, and both Dubaninya and Zolotaryev had major chest fractures. According to the lead investigator, the force required to cause such damage would have been extremely high, similar to the force of a car crash. In addition, the bodies had no external wounds associated with the bone fractures, as if they had been subjected to a high level of pressure. Dubaninya was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips, as well as a piece of skull bone. Zolotaryev had his eyeballs missing, and Kolevatov was missing his eyebrows. The parts of the inquest file made available to the public stated that 6 of the group members died of hypothermia, 3 of fatal injuries. There were no indications of other people nearby apart from the 9 travelers. The tent had been ripped open from within. High levels of radiation were found on one of the victims' clothing. The forensic expert performing the post-mortem stated that the fatal injuries of the 3 bodies could not have been caused by another human being because the force of the blow had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. The condition of the skier's internal organs was not released. At the time, the official verdict was that the students had all died from a compelling natural force. The files were sent to a secret archive. In 1990, Chief Investigator Levinovov gave an interview. He said that he had been ordered to close the case and classify it as secret. Officials had been worried about multiple eyewitness reports of bright flying spheres in the area. Some hikers, about 30 miles south, reported seeing strange orange spheres floating in the night sky. In fact, the very last photograph on a camera found inside the deserted tent showed what looked like bright lights against a black background. There are many theories about what happened on that mountain. Was it an avalanche? But the tent was still standing. Could the Russian military have been testing some kind of concussion weapons? There is even one theory alleging one of the hikers was not who they appeared to be. And why were some of the bodies and gear radioactive? Several people who attended the open casket funerals noted that the bodies all seemed to be unusually tanned. Another strange theory is called the Rule of 9. The Mountain of the Dead has taken 27 lives over the last 100 years, all in groups of 9. In 1960, 9 people died in 3 separate crashes. In 1961, the bodies of 9 tourists from Leningrad were discovered. And it all began in 1959 with the Dyatlov Pass incident. 10 hikers set out, but one became ill and turned back. Once again, a group of 9. In what is sometimes referred to as the American Dyatlov Pass, 5 young men from Yuba City, California, disappeared on February 24, 1978. The friends were on their way home from a basketball game, but they never made it back. A few days after their initial disappearance, their Mercury Montego was found abandoned in a remote area in the Sierra Nevada mountains. A local man who'd spent the night in his car witnessed something strange. On the evening of the disappearances, Joseph Scons of Sacramento suffered a mild heart attack while trying to push his car out of the snow. He got back into his car, keeping the engine running for warmth. Later that night, lying in his car in severe pain, he thought that there were people around his car with flashlights. But when he called out for help, they stopped talking and turned off their lights. After the snow melted in June, 4 of the men's bodies were found deep in the forest, 20 miles from the car. 3 of the bodies were in the woods, with only bones left by this time. The 4th man, Ted Wyver, had taken shelter in a trailer where he had survived for almost 3 months before starving to death. Even though there was food and heating material inside the shelter, Ted's body was found wrapped in sheets. His feet were badly frozen and his death was ruled a combination of hypothermia and starvation. The 5th man was Gary Mathias. Searchers found his boots in the Sierras. He has never been found. There is no one alive that knows what really happened that winter so many years ago. Perhaps we never will.